Hello everyone, welcome to Nicknack's Corner. Today, I'm going to do unpopular book opinions from my Discord. If you're interested in joining my Discord, my link is down below. I host my book clubs over there, and my community also gets to interact with me on a daily basis, and we talk a lot about books and many other things as well that's happening in the world. We don't just keep it to books on the server, but the majority of the server is for book clubs and talking books. So, I also asked people if they want to include their names. They decided to include their Discord names, so here we go. Thomas96 says, "No one pays homage to Tolkien, they just steal from him." Him and Ha on that one there, I do think a lot of people pay homage to him, and I also feel a lot of people steal from him. The thing is, when you create the greatest fantasy ever told, you have a pile of people trying to mimic what you're doing, whether it be intentionally or unintentionally. And that's not to say it's the first fantasy, because it's not, but it's the first modern fantasy book that has, put oomph behind it. I feel mixed on this one. I think people both pay homage and steal from him all the time. Another one from Thomas96 is, C.S. Lewis puts too much of his prejudice in his Narnia books. I have not read the Narnia books in years. However, they've been reading them over on Discord and having their own little book club. And they're all baffled by the amount of prejudice and racism within his books. So it's a very interesting take on it. The quality of Stephen King's new stuff doesn't compare to his classics. I have to sort of disagree. For instance, The Shining, I don't think much holds up to The Shining or Pet Sematary. However, when I've read his Mr. Mercedes trilogy and The Outsider, they were phenomenal. Needful Things was fun, but not nearly as good. I guess I've only really read If It Bleeds, which I thought was great. And I read Elevation, which I didn't care for a whole lot. My sister lent it to me. It was okay. If it was a longer book, I would have been disappointed. But I think that his... because I also enjoyed Dr. Sleep. I don't want to say that they don't compare, but he was definitely in his prime back in the day. My friend K-Fox, who you've seen on my channel where we talk Tolkien all the time, she says, Lord of the Rings is in text, has just as much, if not more, comedy than the movies. I wholeheartedly agree. The Lord of the Rings has an immense amount of comedy in it. J.R.R. Tolkien does a fantastic job at wittiness and characters having banter between each other. So I'm in agreement with that. She also says, classic sci-fi is underrated on BookTube. It most likely is. I haven't gotten into a whole pile of classic sci-fi, unfortunately, yet. I have a few things. Dune mostly is the one that I've gotten into, and I adore it very much, and I'm excited to explore the rest of the Dune world. And I'm going to have to get into more sci-fi as the years go on, so expect that coming up from my channel in the future. Miss Richards says, I hate George R.R. Martin and his repetitiveness. My father had the exact same issue. I didn't, but I read one book a year of it, so I didn't find it repetitive. And that's also the same reason why I am doing 1 to 2 books of Wheel of Time a year going forward, is because I was finding it to be too repetitive. And I think that issue comes with when these authors are writing big beefy books, and what ends up happening is that you're reading it and you're going, oh gee, I don't recall this happening. And what's really happening is he's going to explain it to you what's going on, so that you can move on with the story and not have to go back and reread. So yeah, I feel that, I understand it, and I would agree with you if I had read them all back to back. The Preacher Man says, King is at his best when he focuses on real human interactions and not his supernatural stuff. I wholeheartedly agree. The best parts of it are not even with the clown, but with the kids themselves. There is a lot of aspects of King that I find a lot of people pigeonhole him into a horror area, and he does do horror, but most of his books are nothing more than just supernatural dramas, and I do love that about them. Kindly says House of Leaves is one of the best horror books out there. I have House of Leaves here with me. I have it on my list to read in the near future, and I'm very, very excited for it, so I'll check that out. Wainsey Sit says The Chain by Adrian McKitty was completely overhyped. How did it win awards? I haven't read it, but he wasn't the only one on there who had said that. There are about 2 other people who agreed with him. So, yeah, I've heard of The Chain. We sell a few books of it here and there, but I've never heard anyone come back to me and say it's the best book I've ever read or anything. He also says The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was the best book in the Hunger Games. I have heard that, actually, that it is a better representation of Hunger Games than the 3 previous incarnations. It also says Ready Player One wasn't good enough for a sequel. I haven't read Ready Player One yet. I have heard mixed reviews. I've heard from some people that it's amazing, and from other people that it was just a book full of nostalgia, and that's it. So someday I'll read it and I'll have my own opinion on that. Miss Winchester, Girls of Paper and Fire has important themes, but was a no-go, and I won't continue the series. I don't even know what Girls of Paper and Fire is, but Miss Winchester, you read a lot of books, and I know that if something like that didn't interest you, it's probably not going to be that great of a series. She also says, Angels and Demons by Dan Brown turned me off the series. I'm surprised you got that far. I'm not a huge Dan Brown fan, but, it is what it is. She also says, I haven't found a Heather Graham book I liked. I hear that a lot, that there are these authors that people have a hard time finding that they like. One of the things my father always says, he's reading, I think it's Clive Cussler right now, and he's a hit or miss author for him. So, sometimes when someone has a giant catalog of books, I call them mass market authors. James Patterson, Clive Cussler, Heather Graham is one of them, Nora Roberts, there's a bunch of them. They pump out books, like a book a year, sometimes 2 books a year, and I find that the quality of them, they do quantity over quality, unfortunately. Koss says The Hatchet and The Outsiders are really being boring and overhyped. How dare you say that about The Hatchet? I love that book. But that's fair. I totally get it. I also found The Outsiders to be boring. Hatchet I love, but I think that that all falls into different places for each of us when it comes to that sort of stuff. Aaron says, Lisa Jewell is overrated and her plots are as see-through as a window. I haven't read any Lisa Jewell, but she flies off the shelf, so some people do love her. Curtis. J.R.R. Tolkien may be good at coming up with lore, but isn't a bad novelist. Agree to disagree, Curtis. I think J.R.R. Tolkien is a fantastic novelist, and I do love what he comes up with, but, just like I didn't like Lord of the Flies, you didn't like Lord of the Rings, so it's I totally understand. Each story hits us all differently, and yeah. He also goes on to say Cormac McCarthy is awful. The only book by him that I finished was The Road. It was the only one I really enjoyed, and it was early on in my reading. So that might be why I enjoyed it. If I went back and read it, I might feel differently. I'm not sure. But Blood Mandarin and No Country for Old Men, I could not get through the books. I found them to be very boring. He also says YA fiction is overhyped and booktubers should branch out more. Now, I think it's as simple as if you don't want to read a genre, don't read a genre. YA is most certainly used by a lot of people getting into booktube. If you look at booktube, it's filled with a lot of young people, and it's also filled with a lot of women doing it. Only recently has there been a surge of men joining booktube, and I think YA is there because it's the people who are reading it are of age to enjoy YA and to discuss it with each other. There's obviously a group enough of people out there that want it and enjoy it and love it. So, I work at Indigo, and one of the things that one of my old managers always used to say to me was, don't yuck on someone's yummy, or as I like to say, don't shit on someone's sandwich. Just because, what they might love is something you may not love. I know I wouldn't like Twilight. People are going crazy coming in buying the new Twilight book, and I discuss it with them and talk to them because, you know what, it may not be for me, but it wasn't written for me. It's written for these people. So I don't want to trash anyone's beliefs. My booktube channel and my Discord community is seriously meant for anyone that loves any genre. If I had a big enough group of people who liked YA, I would open up a YA thread, and I would even try out a few YA books. It's just one of those things that I think it comes down to the person. For Curtis and myself, yeah, YA is not something we enjoy, that we have found anyway, but it is something that other people do love. KXU65 says, both Rage of Dragons and Poppy War were bad. I highly disagree. They were two of my favorite books this year. And just because they didn't work for you doesn't mean they don't work for someone else, and they definitely worked for me. He also says Malice is YA. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm very interested in reading it and seeing what I think about it, so we will see then. And also, Orbit books are bad. It turns out he doesn't like Orbit, because over here we got Malice, it's all Orbit. Rage of Dragons is Orbit. I don't think the publisher makes or breaks for a good or bad author. I think what's happening is we have a lot of authors who are reaching out who are self-published and finally being picked up by these publishing companies, and Orbit is one of them that is picking up all these self-published books, and I think that's fantastic. And then for me, my one thing that I wanted to say that I might be controversial is I've never really cared for Harry Potter. I have tried and tried and tried. I see the value in the story. For some people, for me, it didn't hit home. At the same time when it was coming out, I was rereading and rereading Lord of the Rings over and over again, and it just never hit. With Rowling being a train wreck that she is currently, I probably will never revisit Harry Potter books. If my daughters decide they want to read them, I'm going to let them go at it and have fun. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming to the corner.